Okay, so this is a quick introduction to the Academic Word List, or AWL. One of the biggest challenges of learning English is learning vocabulary. How do you do it? And what do you learn? In the English language, there are approximately 171,000 words in current use. 171,000. So learning all those words is impossible. So what should you learn? What should you focus on? Trying to choose the correct words to learn is a really impossible task, and many students find this process to be really frustrating and confusing. There are just too many words to learn. English language teachers have also realized that studying vocabulary is very hard for students, and teachers like Dr. Avril Coxhead, who teaches at the University of Victoria in New Zealand, have created lists of words, and Coxhead created a list that she called AWL, the Academic Word List, in about the year 2000. What Coxhead did was she looked at different textbooks, only academic textbooks, from different types of studies like physics, marketing and mathematics, chemistry, education, English literature, politics. And all of these different textbooks were analyzed by a computer. The 171,000 English words were all analyzed looking for the most common words that appeared in these academic texts. The result of Coxhead's research was that she was able to reduce the 171,000 words of English into a much more manageable list. Instead of all of these words to be learned, she reduced it to a small pile of only 570 words. These 570 words were very, very common in all of these different areas of study. The 570 words of the AWL were then further organized and divided by Coxhead into 10 sublists, and each sublist was about 60 words. And here you can see sublist 1. Sublist 1 is in alphabetical order, beginning with analysis and finishing with variable. And these 60 words are the most common words of the 570 words in the AWL. They are the most common. So if you learn sublist 1, you will be learning the most common words that occur in academic texts. Coxhead's AWL has been so successful and popular that it is used by almost all English language teachers, especially English language teachers who are teaching students going to university. As you can see, many books have been written, focus on vocabulary, for example, essential academic vocabulary, and these are based on and using the academic word list that Coxhead created. If you learn the AWL, then it will help you enormously in surviving and coping with academic life at university.
Okay, so how do I go about learning the AWL? Each AWL sublist is divided into 4 smaller groups. So we have sublist 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4. Each of these groups is 16 words long. Now, 16 words is still very difficult to learn in one day, so try and learn some words from 1.1 in a day, and then the next day review them, and then learn 1.2 the next day, and the next day review them, 1.3 and 1.4 and so on. And in the second week you should try maybe to review them again, 1.1 again, 1.2 again. Lots of review is essential for learning AWL. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to learn an individual word. So let's choose the word response from AWL sublist 1.
So how do I learn response? Well, the first step that you probably want to take is the meaning of the word. So what does response mean? One of the ways that you could learn this would be to learn a synonym or a couple of synonyms. What does synonym mean? A synonym is a word with a similar meaning. For example, if I say the man was kind, another way of saying this might be that the man was nice. So these two words have a very similar meaning, and therefore they are probably synonyms. In the case of response, can you think of a word that might have a similar meaning to response? Stop the video now and have a think about it, and I'll tell you the answer in the next slide. Okay, so the word response is a noun. So a good synonym for a response might be an answer. A response, an answer. These have a similar meaning, and so they are synonyms. But what else do I need to know? I also need to know other words in the same family. So I know the noun is response, but what is the verb? Stop the video now and think about what is the verb of response. Okay, so the verb of response is respond. A response, to respond. He responded to the question. He answered the question. Okay, so what do we need to know next? The next thing we need to know is an example sentence. So here is an example sentence for the noun response. Look at this sentence now, stop the video, and try and fill in these three gaps. If you already know the word response, you should be able to fill in these gaps, especially these two spaces here, which are in the pattern for response. And it's a very common pattern for response. So you need to learn not just this word, but also these two words that come next to it. Stop the video now and have a think about it. Okay, here is the answer. So the pattern for no comment is to make no comment. This is really a pattern that you learn with the word comment. But the other part, in response to, these two words are in the pattern for response. Unless you know these two words, then you really don't know the word response. Okay, here is the verb respond, to respond. The Prime Minister did not respond. Now, remember the pattern that you just learned previously. This pattern is very similar. What word do you think goes in the space here? Stop the video and think about it. So the answer is to, same as before, to respond to the question. So to summarize, when you learn a word from the AWL, you should learn the word, response. You should learn a synonym for that word, such as answer. Then you should look at the family of words. So this is the verb, this is the adjective, and this is the noun. Then you should write down maybe one or even two example sentences from a dictionary so that you can learn the patterns that are very commonly used with that word in response to and to respond to something. If you do this, you should be able to use the AWL when you're writing an essay.